Hi, and welcome to this month's edition of Breck Buzz. I'm your host, Haley Littleton, and stay tuned because today we're going to be talking with Jeff Kinney from Allo. Breck Buzz. I'm your host, Haley Littleton, and today we are lucky enough to be joined by Jeff Kinney from Allo. And for those of you who maybe are wondering who's Allo, or what does that mean, or what does that stand for, many of you have been following along our Fiber 9600 project. We've been talking about it here, and we have actually brought on Allo Communications to be our partner in that network, and we're super excited. But
thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and just maybe give us a little background on yourself and Allo and what you guys are all about.
Sure. Well, Allo was founded in the early 2000s, so we've been around for a while. Mm-hmm. We're a competitive telecommunications provider, which means that we were really founded to go into areas where the telecommunications infrastructure was poor, mm-hmm. where people weren't getting great service. And sometimes that's in rural communities, sometimes that's in not so rural communities. But our mission, we really founded the company with the idea that we could take world-class technology into communities that really need it and make a difference. And our mission hasn't changed since 2003 when the company was founded.
Yeah, and so you guys started in Nebraska, correct?
We did. We started in the western side of Nebraska, very rural Nebraska. Mm-hmm. There was an awful lot of need there. That particular environment, which is not completely unlike Breckenridge, where it's not particularly easy to get here. These communities are not necessarily located on major highways. Mm-hmm. And so to have access being a little bit restricted and have a limited telecommunications network is really an impediment mm-hmm. to economic development, societal development, and so forth. And so we really didn't know all of that when we first launched service right. in the first town, which was Scottsbluff, Nebraska. And those are some of the things that we learned as time wore on.
Yeah, and so what does expansion kind of looked like for you guys?
Well, when we started, the intent with my business partner, Brad Moline, it was the two of us that kind of founded the company. We had no intention of ever having grow to the size that we are today. Mm-hmm. The goal was to go into this particular community in rural Nebraska and bring world-class technology, which meant building a new access network that would reach literally everyone in the community and deliver fiber optic cable. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a long-term infrastructure. It's expensive to do. It's construction, the sidewalks, right. There's digging, there's people up on the poles, it's quite a process to get it done. But once it's done, you've created an infrastructure that will benefit the community for decades, literally. Mm-hmm. The glass lasts for a very, very, very long time. And the technology that's enabling us to put really cutting edge services over that glass mm-hmm. is improving every single year, right. With no sign of slowing down in sight.
Yeah, and so you guys actually expanded into Lincoln, correct? That was one of the big cities?
We did, and that was certainly not something that I think we thought we would ever do when right. we founded the company. But as we got the network constructed in Scottsbluff and as we began to offer services there, we noticed that we were having more of an impact on the community, I think a positive impact, mm-hmm. I would hope, than we originally anticipated. It was more than just a new telecommunication service. It turned out to be an enabler. And I don't think that we knew this by grand design necessarily, but it was the beginning of the time, which is very much in play today, where broadband is like oxygen for economic development as mm-hmm. well as development along a number of parameters.
Right.
And so we began to really make a difference. We began to save jobs. We began to increase economic opportunity in the community. And so surrounding communities started to work with us and find ways through economic development or other mechanisms to help economically to pull Allo into those communities. Mm-hmm. And so it became Scottsbluff and Gering, then it became Alliance and Bridgeport and Ogallala and so forth. And our footprint started to expand that way, very mm-hmm. organically, yeah. And pretty soon we really had a region. We did not necessarily perceive that Lincoln was a community that really needed a broadband infrastructure, but they made that abundantly clear. A larger company called Nelnet out of Lincoln bought our company. And so now we've expanded into Lincoln and continue to expand both in Colorado and in Nebraska.
Yeah, because Breckenridge is not your first Colorado town, correct?
Correct. We started to work with the city of Fort Morgan, Colorado, and what we found in Fort Morgan is an extremely progressive community leadership team. The city manager, city attorney, just on and on. They had a vision. They had a very aggressive vision for the future, and they were quite clear that their community was not going to be left behind. They were going to be on the cutting edge of smart city technology. They really saw the value of broadband and what it meant. Culturally, the city of Fort Morgan is a very diverse community, and broadband becomes sort of an enabler that's also unifying.
Right.
And it was a magnificent project. Working with a progressive community is so key. We began construction in the spring of 2018, and were completed by late fall of that very same year. So it was a very quick build, it was a very easy build. The town was amazing to work with, and it's done.
Yeah. And so then now Breckenridge.
Now Breckenridge, and I would characterize the town of Breckenridge, the city of Fort Morgan, the personalities are different, but the visions are exactly the same. The town of Breckenridge, the staff that we've worked with, are so progressive, so understanding. They have such a clear understanding of the technology and the benefits of the technology, not just economically, but also on the society as well. And they're very focused, they're very clear this is what they're going to do. And we work so cooperatively together.
Yeah, and I think that has been a major, factor for us is it is about, providing better service, but it's also the bigger picture of preparing our town for the future and those smart city applications and technologies that you talked about. And so, I think we're really looking at, the progressive aspect of it, of what does this mean for our community and really how it can benefit us.
Absolutely. I think, when you look at Allo's product portfolio today, or any what is called fiber to the home service provider, you see a traditional communications company, you see voice services, you see video services, you see data services, and there's a lot of technology behind that. But Allo is very, very focused on maximizing that big investment in the fiber optic cable and making sure that that really takes us into the future. So you're going to see us deploy services, products and services that go beyond just the traditional triple play.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's so exciting, and it has been a really great partnership. And some people might know or not know that we're doing it in a phased approach, which is maybe a little different. But right now we are looking to provide service on the kind of core Main Street area, and then up in Wellington, right? You guys have been out and about talking to people, and
the construction's going so well, and for the town of Breckenridge, obviously constructing in a mountain environment is very difficult, very costly. And so I think the phased approach certainly is the only rational way to do this until the concept is really proved, until we really are doing what we say we're going to do. But I suspect it's just going to pick up and accelerate from there.
Yeah, and so I would love to give you kind of an opportunity, for people who are watching who maybe Allo is coming, maybe they're in Wellington, Allo's going to be there soon, or they're going to be in a neighborhood where we're kind of coming soon. Why would you say that, maybe someone says, well, I have Comcast, why should I switch, or what should that look like? What would you say to that question?
Well, the debates are not unlike when Google Fiber came, say, to Kansas City or some of the major communities. You have an existing service provider, or a set of existing service providers that have been here. But this project was conceived and pushed by the town of Breckenridge for a reason. That vision of where this community is going is very clear, and it's not going to get there with the present networks that exist today. And so the investment in fiber optics really sets the community up for the future. Our job then is to come back with extremely innovative products and services that demonstrate why that investment was such a good idea.
Definitely, yeah. So maybe share a little bit more about what sort of services you guys are going to be offering and the packages and stuff.
Well, I'm probably the wrong person to talk about
Yeah, of course.
The existing product and pricing and so forth, but I am the right person to tell you that if there is a technology initiative that is enabled by broadband, Allo is pursuing it and studying it with an intent to deliver it.
Awesome, yeah.
So we're talking to communities about smart city trials, but broadband touches so many aspects of our lives that the array of things that we can do once broadband is unlimited is incredible. And it's been so exciting at Allo to now have enough scale to really be able to take seriously that focus on those new frontiers.
Yeah, any sort of examples maybe that you've seen?
Well, an example would be this. With virtual reality, augmented reality, we all know that it's coming. We all know that, well, the Oculus Rift and so forth, these examples are here. But a way to put it to really good use is, imagine a middle school social studies class that is able to take a walking tour of the White House or a walking tour of the National Museum of Iraq. It's not going to be possible in quite some time, I think, for us to be able to do that in the real world.
Right.
But in the virtual world, we can do these things. So we also very closely keep our eye on what other gig communities do with all of this bandwidth. So there's great examples of projects where schools are collaborating with major universities at near zero latency. The University of Stanford has a microscope. I don't really understand why this thing is so amazing, but it's something that very few school district children, if any, are ever going to be exposed to.
Right.
And so they set up a project with the city of Chattanooga where a school was chosen and a biology course was taught in real time on very large monitors, where cameras everywhere, microphones everywhere, where the professor had felt as if he was in the classroom, students felt as if the professor was in the classroom, and part of the course was for the students to actually be able to drive this microscope through virtual reality. It takes incredible latency numbers and network performance to pull that off when those schools are separated by such distance.
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's also exciting, and we're really excited, at the town of Breck, to see how, traditionally some of these issues we've had with, our busy tourist season and bandwidth and, what can really, allow us to be innovative in how we kind of approach some of the issues that we have in town. Whether that's traffic or trash cans or you name it,
Absolutely. The ambition for smart cities is so great. It just came from a smart city conference, and it really is so focused on making sustainable, livable communities. It's not a focus on the technology at all. It's how do we use the technology to improve our lives, improve our communities, to preserve the environment that we exist in, and that's smart cities. And it's a fantastic technology. So a lot of pieces have come together to make what the town of Breckenridge is doing really meaningful. It's Allo, it's the Fiber 9600 project, which gets the glass throughout the community, enables the service, and really gets things started. But it's also working more broadly than just the town of Breckenridge. Project Thor, connecting us to the real world, and participating in all of those initiatives that the Colorado Broadband Initiative is pushing forward. So it's a perfect example of what happens when we really do partner.
Right. Yeah. And Thor is really exciting, and I think the Colorado Department of Transportation is also very interested in fiber, right?
Oh, absolutely. And what they're doing is innovative. So many communities suffer where a particular government entity looks at itself as in the way.
Right.
We're really building a fourth utility here, and so the rules that maybe made sense a decade ago might need to be looked at more critically today, if your objective is really to push this new vision of the future forward. And the Department of Transportation for Colorado is so innovative. They're just really trying to enable this and not be in the way at all.
Definitely. Yeah, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. From the town's perspective, in the conversations we've had about Fiber 9600, we get this question of kind of, well, why would a town invest in this? Why would a town try to make a network that can provide service? And so I'd love to hear your opinion on just kind of why it's important for municipal governments to kind of take this step.
Well, Colorado is really leading the way there. We're seeing lots of municipalities throughout Colorado take a stand that this is the fourth utility, that broadband is my success into the future, and I need to control that success. And I can't just turn it over to a third-party entity, however altruistic that might look right now. I think municipalities also realize that these networks last for decades.
Right.
A lot can happen over time, and they really want to take control, but not necessarily become a service provider and deal with all of those sorts of problems. I recognize that there are commercial entities out there in the world that really know how to do this well.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the town of Breckenridge really taking control of that very important aspect of their future. So service providers provide services, obviously, but that doesn't necessarily compel or drive them into smart city applications.
Right.
And the town of Breckenridge is very focused on that.
Yes, definitely. And I think that's a great answer, you know, really kind of we like to control our destiny here at the town of Breck. I think a lot of people can see in our projects, we really try to make sure we're creating a sustainable future for ourselves. So it's very exciting. And, you know, we also get the question all the time about cell service and all of that kind of stuff. And so, you know, during our peak times, we see a lot of overloading. You know, if you're here on Christmas Day and you're trying to send a text message, it can be really hard. And so, you know, also looking at how fiber can kind of help all of our public communications and safety in that aspect as well.
Right. And, you know, public safety, law enforcement, those are aspects of smart cities that always rise to the top in terms of importance. We also know that 5G is emerging and starting to be deployed. 5G is a marked improvement over 4G LTE and the kinds of services that we have today. But 5G, part of the magic of 5G is small cells, which means cellular towers can't be on a big hill serving an entire community.
Right.
We have to get the cells very, very close to where people are, which means there are an awful lot of them. And of those cells are operating at high speeds, so they need fiber backhaul in order to operate well.
Right.
And so this project is enabling 5G in a way, and 5G will be overwhelmed by those peak times that you're describing as well. And so a big part of the magic of 5G is what's called Wi-Fi offload, meaning get the traffic that's mobile, that needs to be on the 5G network, that's what it's for. Get the traffic that is static or not moving, where Wi-Fi is accessible, and get that traffic pushed off to the Wi-Fi network as quickly as possible.
Oh wow, fascinating.
That's called Wi-Fi offload.
Yeah.
And it's one of the magic of making 5G really, really work well and the dream actually come true. So the town, the Fiber 9600 project, the partnership with Allo, is really pushing all those initiatives forward.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be exciting. And you know, and I think in the next phase, 2020, we're also going to be looking at some public Wi-Fi options, which will be great because I know we have so many international guests who are in town who are looking for Wi-Fi to kind of use their phone and everything. So I think it's really it'll be so exciting just to see kind of what comes. You know, there's so much we don't know, but there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in this space. So.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Yes, and so if people want to kind of know more about Allo, you guys are opening up a location in town, correct?
We are, and so there's also information. A good starting point is our website, allocommunications.com. I think the Fiber 9600 web presence also directs us and gets you right to the right sources for that information.
Yeah, and if people want to learn more, they can go to allocommunications.com/Breckenridge, and there you can actually kind of build out a test plan. There's a link that says build my plan, and people can kind of pick and choose and see what the options are, and learn more about kind of where we're going next. And
the build schedule details are there as well, and that can answer a lot of questions.
Yes, and people also really should go there and test their speed, because you can test their network speed on the site as well to get a good feel of kind of what they're currently getting and what they might need, because you know, we talk about a gig a lot, but I don't think what people don't realize is a gig is crazy fast.
You know, it's crazy fast, but the world is also changing fast, and one of the things that we're going to see, particularly through the holiday season, we all know that e-gaming is big. In fact, it's growing faster than professional sports.
Wow.
There are whole stadiums that hold major gaming tournaments. I could go on and on. But e-gaming or cloud-based gaming, all of the major gaming platforms are delivering cloud offerings this fall, where instead of having the major console, say at home, like an Xbox 365, which I think is particularly meaningful here, where you, as you say, there's an awful lot of visitors throughout the year. These major games are hosted in the cloud, and that takes an enormous amount of bandwidth. All of the compute and graphic generation is done in the cloud, and on-prem, or what you're holding in your hand, is really just a controller that is communicating with the cloud.
Wow, yeah.
So extremely low latency, very high bandwidth numbers, and huge amounts of data get consumed. In fact, an estimate for one cloud gaming product, which will be a major name, is 35 frames per second, 35 meg streams, which is just numbers, but it means that a 60-hour gaming session, which for the odd teenager just means a long weekend, right? Is a terabyte of data.
Wow.
So that's an awfully hard thing to put on your cellular plan.
Yes, wow. Yeah, and so I think that's a great point too. As we see kind of technology expanding, we're going to just need more and more bandwidth, and really prepping for that.
Well, we're going to need it, but Allo is trying to encourage it. I mean, pushing these kinds of initiatives forward is all about saying, look, we've made the investment in a world-class communications infrastructure, let's use it. In all of our markets, we're not afraid of people using bandwidth. We're trying to encourage them to use bandwidth. We don't have bandwidth caps where you have to think of this as some commodity that you have to preserve.
Yeah.
We are researching those cloud-based experiences, next-generation experiences that I think virtual reality will be a big component of, that use a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I mean, that's such a paradigm shift, right?
Right.
It's, and I think that is a really big part of the larger conversation, is this paradigm shift of, we're not gonna ding you for using bandwidth. We're not gonna try to limit it or try to keep you from using it. We really want you to. We're
gonna show you some new experiences where you're gonna use a lot of bandwidth and just not care, and we're not going to care either.
Right.
Because those experiences are being built today as broadband networks advance, and people who have fiber are going to be the first people who are exposed to those new experiences.
Yeah, and I think the last thing I would love to talk about is just something we hadn't really touched on much, is just the, you talked about, fiber being kind of like decades, it's not wearing down. Talk a little bit more about the resiliency of it, in terms of people really not losing service, because I think that's something we really can't even wrap our heads around.
It's completely impervious to weather events. In the town of Breckenridge's deployment, as in others that Allo serves, it's a complete underground. So it's extremely resilient. The connectivity, we're doing lots of diversity, Project Thor, but we're also looking at other pipes so that we have a continuous uptime. That's extremely important, particularly as we get more and more dependent on broadband. When citizens are having video interactions with their physician, when medical data is going across this, the reliability is so important. And wireless technology is great, but it is not impervious to weather events. And so the fiber becomes the backbone of the communications infrastructure for the community, and wireless plays its best role built on top of that.
Right. I mean, and we've always kind of, since we started this project, kind of compared it to, it's just like building a road or supplying water. It's something that
it really is the fourth utility, isn't it?
Yeah, something that at the town of Breck we see as a real need, a real public good and safety issue, and I think we are just incredibly excited to begin this partnership and to see what services are going to be provided. So
there's so much to come.
So much to come, and we will talk about it more here and across town. But thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us and giving us more information. So
perfect. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on Breck Buzz. We'll see you next time.
You guys are clear.
Great. Super relaxed, good conversation.